Are you tired of getting bullied by bagger daddies at bike night because you can't quite kickstart your chopper? Or maybe your friends are giving you flack for that 15-minute fail session before you can finally hit the freeway. Guys, there is a better way to live. Today, I'm going to show you my 2 kickstart sequences for my bike, one for when the motor's hot, one for when the motor is cold, guaranteed to save your leg and potentially even your reputation. I'm Grease, you're watching Grease's Garage, and I'm going to help you skip the struggle. I want to start this video by talking to any new kickstart riders out there by telling you, do not worry about this. Kickstarting a Harley, even a Harley Big Twin, is very, very easy. Way easier than people made it out to be when I was new. And actually, the bike you see on this channel, my Evo Big Twin, is my first kickstart Harley ever. So up until 2 years ago, I had never kickstarted a Harley in my life. This sequence has helped me not only to get reliable one-kick operation out of my bike, but also just to remember all the steps so you don't end up leaving your driveway with your gas turned off. Today I'm going to show you 2 different processes, and that's because the process of getting the bike woken up when it's cold is just slightly different, only by 2 steps, but it's slightly different from what I do when the bike is warm and I just stopped for gas and now I'm starting the bike right back up. And by the time you're done watching this video, I will have taken all the mystery out of kickstarting your Harley Big Twin. Let's get into it. We're going to start things off with the cold start process because there are 2 additional steps in this process that are important. Step 1 is going to be to turn your fuel on. Some people leave their bikes sitting overnight with the fuel on. As a best practice, I never tend to do that because not that I think the bike is going to leak every time I leave the fuel on, but I used to have a worse tank, and a lot of people have petcocks that are just old and worn out. So we've all just gotten in the habit of turning the gas off every time we get off the bike, or at least I have. So for me, step 1 is to turn on the fuel. Step 2 is going to be to turn on your enricher or your choke, depending on which kind of carburetor you have. In this demonstration, you can see I've got the S&S Super E with the stock teardrop air cleaner. So I pull up this enricher lever right here to give the bike a little more fuel while it's getting started. Step 3, prime kicks. Now, this is an important one I want to stop on for a second. This is something I only do when the motorcycle is cold. And the reason I do this could be specific to my bike, but it might also be the same with your bike. Now, what you're seeing filmed right here is something I can only get the opportunity to show you right in this moment. I have noticed that when my bike sits for a day or 2, and then I'm ready to ride it again, that first time or 2 that I kick it through, that kicker tends to be a little stiffer. And then once I've kicked it through once or twice, now the kicker moves as I remember it. So anytime the bike is cold, I always start with 2 primer kicks while I've got the fuel on and the enricher on. And this just seems to loosen that kicker mechanism up, and then it'll move a lot more smoothly when it's time to actually fire the bike. The next thing we're going to do is to find the right stroke. Now, when I was getting into a kickstart Harley, people said this to me all the time. When I was having trouble starting my bike, are you on the right stroke? But if you're brand new to this, you don't know what that means. And the trouble is, everyone just assumes that you already know how to find it or what you're looking for, but you probably don't unless you've done this before. So let me show you what it is you're looking for. And the way that I find this stroke is by putting my weight on the kicker pedal and seeing if that kicker pedal falls through. If I'm on the exhaust stroke, my kicker pedal will not hold my weight of about 190 pounds if I'm standing on the kicker pedal at 90 degrees. If I'm on the compression stroke, it will hold my weight standing on the kicker pedal. So the way you do this, the way you find the right stroke, is by putting your weight on that pedal, and if it falls through, you know that your next kick stroke is the one you want to be on. Now, one thing to note, and it's super important, is you should never, ever look for the right stroke with your key on. You'll notice you have not seen a step yet that says to turn your key on, and that is by design, okay? The reason you don't want to do that is because if you're on that exhaust stroke and you're slowly falling through putting your weight on the pedal, that thing could kick back on you. So it's very, very important that you never do this while your key is on. So let's assume you've done this, you found your compression stroke, and now we are ready to kickstart the bike. Now you can go ahead, turn your key on. And the last step in our sequence is to kick that thing with a good, solid, swift kick, follow through all the way to the bottom of the stroke. Do not rip your leg off it halfway or kick half-heartedly. You really need to put your weight into it. The kicker arm will disengage from the teeth when it reaches the bottom of the stroke. But if you only kick halfway through it, it's not quite gotten to the point where it disengages. That's how it can kick back and throw you. So all you need to do to protect yourself is to kick hard, kick fully all the way through the stroke, and let that bike come to life. Now that we've got that cold kickstarting process squared away, let's talk about what I do differently when my bike is warm. The first thing I'm going to do is turn the fuel back on. When I stop for gas, I turn the fuel off, I fill the gas can, and then when I'm ready to go again, it's the same repeatable process. Are you seeing what I'm saying? Every time you get off the bike, turn the fuel off. That way, every time you come back to the bike, step one is still step one. Turn your fuel on. Now, since the bike is hot, I'm not going to turn the enricher on. This is a great way to flood your bike and end up having to pull your plugs and dry them out or kick over and over and over again until your plugs are able to fire. Do not use your enricher or your choke after the bike has already warmed up. One other thing that we are not going to do when the bike is warm is primer kicks. Because the motor is already heated up and you've already used the kicker pedal earlier in the day, I don't find that it gets sticky the way it does when it sits for a day or two. So I do not do prime kicks when the motor is warm, and I do not use the enricher when the bike is warm. The next step is going to be to find that compression stroke. I do this when the motor's cold, and I do it when the motor's hot. The reason is you just want these steps to become automatic. You don't want to keep changing the process, doing it one way this day and another way a different day. It's just going to confuse you. Not to mention, you want the best chance of that bike starting on the first kick. Nobody wants to be there kicking multiple times, looking like you've never kick-started a bike before. So I always find the compression stroke the same way we did it before. Turn that key off. See if the kicker pedal will hold your weight. If it does, you're on the right stroke and you're ready to turn that key on and then give that bike a kick. The next thing I want to show you guys is what it looks like when you have a reliable kickstart motorcycle. So you'll see me kick this thing over, shut it down, kick it over, shut it down. All of this is done with the engine cold. I can leave my hand here on the fins and you'll hear when the bike is idling. It's idling super low. I have not warmed it up yet, but I just want you to see you can have a motorcycle that kicks on the first kick every time. And I also include this as a reminder that while finding the right stroke is important and will give you a better chance of the motorcycle starting, what you'll see in the next clip is just completely ignoring the stroke, kicking it on whatever stroke it's on. And if you have your carb set up right and you have your timing set up right, you don't necessarily have to find the right stroke. That's just an extra step that you can take to ensure that it fires up. So let's check it out. Nothing to it, guys. One kick motorcycle every time. Now that I've taken you through the cold start process and the warm start process, we have two other things to talk about today. And I'm sure that some of you watching this video are already asking these questions the entire time, so let's get into it. There are really three things that go into having a reliable one-kick motorcycle. One is your starting sequence, which we've just covered. But equally important, you need to have your carb set up properly, and you need to have your ignition timing timed correctly. Now, I have videos specific to this. I will put the links down in the description. If you have an SNS Super E, I actually have a 101 and a 102 video. The first is just a basic setup, what's what, where everything is, and the other is a tuning guide. So both of those links are in the description. I'll put the link to the tuning guide right up here if you need to get to it. The last step in your journey is to set your ignition timing properly, because if your timing is off, it doesn't matter what kickstart sequence you use, you're going to have a tough time getting that motorcycle to start. I am famously a fan of the points ignition setup. I think it is just dead simple and so easy to install, to time, and to carry a backup. So if you want to learn how to time points or convert your Evo Big Twin over to points, click on this video right here where I will take you through the full process of converting your bike over to points so that you can have a fast, easy, reliable kickstart setup for your bike. If you guys are getting value out of these videos and you're enjoying the channel, please consider subscribing down below, trying to get these videos out to as many people as I can. I know what it's like to be in the chopper game without a mentor, without somebody to guide you. I'm not an expert, but I'll do until he shows up. So share the channel with a friend. Click the links down below to grab yourself some Grease's Garage merch to support the channel. And thank you guys for tuning in. I'll catch you next week.